The Quantum Pilgrim. The quantum drive died with a whimper, not a bang. Zarya watched through her ship's viewport as the last traces of faster-than-light energy dispersed into the void, leaving her stranded in an unknown solar system. The pursuing vessels were nowhere to be seen, a small mercy, considering everything else that had gone wrong. Her body shimmered with an ethereal purple glow, a sign that the quantum destabilization was progressing faster than she'd calculated. Zarya pressed her hand against the medical console, watching as it displayed her deteriorating biological readings in angry red holograms. The assassins had known exactly what they were doing when they hit her ship with that quantum disruptor. "Computer, status of nearest habitable planet," she commanded, her voice steady despite the growing pain in her chest. "Class M planet detected. Local designation, Earth. Technological level, pre-FTL. Atmosphere compatible with your biology. Warning: indigenous intelligent species present." Zarya allowed herself a bitter laugh. Of course she'd end up at a pre-FTL world. The universe had a cruel sense of humor that way. But she was out of options. Her body wouldn't survive another hour in space. "Plot emergency landing trajectory," she ordered, already feeling the ship's artificial gravity compensating for atmospheric entry. Minimal population density area. The ship's descent was rougher than she'd hoped. Earth's atmosphere clawed at her vessel's compromised shields, and the landing, if one could call it that, left a quarter-mile trench across what appeared to be an abandoned industrial complex. Zarya grabbed her emergency pack and the quantum stabilizer, knowing she had minutes at most before local authorities arrived. She hadn't made it 20 steps from the wreckage when her legs gave out. The quantum destabilization was accelerating, causing her cellular structure to phase in and out of normal space-time. Without help, she'd dissolve into quantum particles within days. "Hey, you all right?" a male voice called out from behind her. Zarya spun around, her hand instinctively reaching for her phase pistol. A human male stood there, wearing what appeared to be medical scrubs under a leather jacket. He held his hands up in a universal gesture of peace. "I'm Mason," he said, taking a careful step forward. "I'm a medic. You look like you could use some help." Zarya's enhanced senses detected no deception in his voice, only genuine concern. She also noticed his eyes didn't widen at her clearly non-human appearance. Her purple-tinted skin and bioluminescent markings should have triggered some shock in a pre-FTL species. "You seem unusually calm about this situation," she managed through gritted teeth. Mason shrugged, taking another step closer. "Let's just say this isn't my first rodeo with the unusual. Former military medic, special operations. I've seen things that don't make it into the official reports." He gestured to her glowing form. "That looks like some kind of quantum event affecting your cellular structure. Am I close?" Zarya's eyes widened. "How could you possibly know that?" "Like I said, special operations. We had a few encounters that never made it to the history books." He was beside her now, medical scanner in hand. Primitive by her standards, but he seemed to know what he was looking at. "Your atomic structure is phasing in and out of our space-time. That's got to hurt like hell." "The pain is manageable," Zarya lied, trying to stand again and failing. "But I need medical attention, somewhere secure, and probably some way to stabilize your quantum signature." Mason finished for her. He glanced at the horizon, where the first signs of emergency response vehicles were appearing. "Lucky for you, I've got a fully equipped bunker about 2 miles from here. Comes with the territory of being a paranoid ex-military medic." Zarya studied him for a moment. Everything she knew about pre-FTL civilizations suggested this level of understanding should be impossible. Yet here was this human, calmly discussing quantum physics while offering help she desperately needed. "Why would you help me?" she asked, even as she allowed him to help her to her feet. Mason's expression turned serious. "Because about 7 years ago, someone very similar to you saved my life during an operation that officially never happened. I swore if I ever got the chance to return the favor to your people, I would." He smiled slightly. "Also, I'm pretty sure those sirens aren't just coming to offer you a welcome basket. Zoria made her decision. She didn't have much choice. Her body was failing, and this human seemed to be her best chance at survival. I am Zoria, and I should warn you. Helping me could be dangerous. There are people hunting me, people who will not hesitate to eliminate any human who interferes. Story of my life, Mason replied, already helping her toward a camouflaged vehicle. But first, let's stabilize your quantum signature before you phage shift into another dimension. Then you can tell me who's trying to kill you and why. As they drove away from the crash site, Zoria watched emergency vehicles converging on her ruined ship. She knew she should be more concerned about violating first contact protocols or the dangers of trusting a stranger on a pre-FTL world. Instead, she found herself studying Mason's profile as he drove, wondering what experiences had prepared him for this moment. What she didn't tell him, couldn't tell him yet, was that stabilizing her quantum signature would require more than just medical attention. The only permanent solution would require something no human had ever been asked to give: a complete biological merger with her quantum-based physiology. She'd have to convince this stranger to literally share his body with her consciousness, or she would die. But that conversation could wait until they were somewhere safe. For now, she focused on staying corporeal as Mason's vehicle disappeared into the night, leaving behind the wreckage of her old life and driving toward an uncertain future on this primitive yet surprising world. Trust in strange places. Mason's bunker turned out to be an underground medical facility disguised as an abandoned warehouse. As he helped Zoria through the hidden entrance, she noticed the seamless blend of human technology with something distinctly more advanced. The medical bay, in particular, contained equipment that shouldn't exist on a pre-FTL world. "You have some explaining to do," Zoria said as Mason helped her onto an examination table. Her body flickered again, portions of her arm briefly becoming transparent before solidifying. "This technology, it's not human origin." Mason activated a quantum field stabilizer, one that matched the exact frequency of her homeworld's technology. "Remember that alien who saved my life? Let's just say they left me with more than just a thank you note." He adjusted the field until the flickering in her body reduced. "But right now, I think you're the one who needs to do some explaining. Who are you really? And what caused this quantum destabilization?" Zoria closed her eyes as the stabilizing field brought temporary relief. "I was the keeper of my species' genetic legacy. My body contains quantum-encoded genetic information for my entire civilization. Billions of DNA sequences stored at the quantum level within my cellular structure. That's why they're hunting you," Mason said, checking readings on his modified medical scanner. "You're a living database." "More than that," Zoria replied. "I'm the last of my kind who can pass this information on. The others like me, they've all been killed or captured by the harvesters, a species that believes they can achieve evolutionary perfection by stealing and combining the genetic traits of other races." Mason's expression darkened. "The ones who attack you, these harvesters, they're the same species that tried to invade Earth 7 years ago, aren't they?" Zoria sat up sharply, immediately regretting the movement as pain lanced through her body. "They attacked Earth. That's impossible. Your world shouldn't have been advanced enough to detect them." "We weren't," Mason confirmed, helping her lie back down. "But we had help. An alien princess, not unlike yourself, crashed near our base during a classified operation. She warned us about the incoming threat and helped us prepare a defense. We managed to drive them off. But—" He paused, his expression haunted. "The cost was high." "What happened to her?" Zoria asked softly. "She sacrificed herself to overload their quantum drives, took out their whole invasion fleet." Mason turned away, adjusting equipment that didn't need adjusting. "We buried her with full military honors, even though officially it never happened." Zoria watched him work, understanding now why he'd been so quick to help her. "The stabilizing field is only temporary, isn't it?" Mason nodded grimly. Your quantum structure is degrading faster than I can compensate for. Whatever weapon they hit you with, it's causing a cascade failure at the quantum level. I estimate 3 days at most before complete cellular breakdown. There is a solution, Zoria said carefully. But it requires something I have no right to ask of you. Mason turned back to face her, his expression serious. Let me guess, some kind of biological merger. A way to stabilize your quantum matrix by anchoring it to a stable human genetic structure. Zoria stared at him in shock. How could you possibly know that? Because that's what she asked me to do, Mason replied quietly. The princess who saved us. But before we could complete the process, the harvesters attacked. That's why you're here, isn't it? You're looking for someone compatible with your genetic structure who can help stabilize you. Not exactly, Zoria admitted. My ship's emergency protocols brought me to the nearest habitable planet. Meeting you, that was chance, or perhaps something more. She hesitated. The merger process, it's permanent. Our consciousness, our memories, our very beings would combine. You would still be you, but you would also be me. And I would be you. Before Mason could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Security screens showed multiple vehicles approaching, black SUVs with government markings. Looks like someone tracked our exit from the crash site, Mason said, quickly moving to a weapons locker. Any chance these are the good guys? Zaria's expression was grim. The harvesters have infiltration units that can perfectly mimic other species. We won't know they're not human until they try to kill us. Mason pulled out what appeared to be standard human weapons, but Zaria noticed subtle modifications that suggested alien technology. Well, that explains a few things about some of our politicians, he muttered. There's a tunnel system under the facility. We need to move. Mason, Zoria called as he helped her up. About the merger. Let's survive the next hour first, he replied with a tight smile. Then we can discuss sharing bodies and minds. Though I have to warn you, there are some embarrassing memories in here I'd rather not share. They made it halfway to the tunnel entrance when the facility's main door exploded inward. Through the smoke stepped figures that looked human at first glance, but moved with an unnatural precision that gave away their true nature. Zaria of the Quantum Archive, the lead figure announced in a voice that was almost, but not quite, human. Surrender the genetic database, and we will make your death painless. Resist, and we will extract it from your dying cells. Mason's response was to open fire with his modified weapon. The energy burst caught the lead infiltrator in the chest, causing its human disguise to flicker and reveal the crystalline structure beneath. Run, he shouted to Zaria, providing covering fire as more infiltrators poured in. Get to the tunnels. I'll hold them off. Zaria stumbled toward the tunnel entrance, her failing body barely responding to her commands. She turned back to see Mason engaging the infiltrators in hand-to-hand combat when his weapon ran dry. His movements suggested training beyond standard military. Someone had taught him how to fight these creatures. She reached the tunnel controls and hesitated. Everything in her training told her to flee, to protect the genetic database she carried at all costs. But watching Mason fight to protect her stirred something else. A memory of another human, on another world, making a similar sacrifice. Zaria made her decision. Using the last of her strength, she focused her quantum energy into a controlled burst. The wave of energy passed harmlessly through Mason, but struck the infiltrators, disrupting their disguises and freezing them momentarily in quantum flux. That won't hold them long, she gasped as Mason reached her, and it's accelerated my deterioration. I have hours now, not days. Mason lifted her into his arms as they entered the tunnel. Then I guess we better have that conversation about sharing bodies sooner rather than later. He managed a grim smile. Though you should know, I snore. As the tunnel entrance sealed behind them, Zoria allowed herself to hope. Perhaps here, on this supposedly primitive world, she had found not just a means of survival, but something she'd thought lost forever. Trust. breaking barriers. The backup facility was smaller than Mason's main bunker, but it had one crucial advantage: a working quantum stabilization chamber. Zarya recognized the technology immediately. It was an exact replica of her people's medical equipment. "Your princess," she said softly as Mason helped her into the chamber. "She must have trusted you completely to share this technology." Mason's hands moved expertly over the controls, adjusting settings with the familiarity of long practice. "Lyra," he said quietly. Her name was Lyra. And yes, she trusted me. Right up until the end. Zarya's body shimmered as the chamber activated, the quantum field temporarily halting her deterioration. "You were going to merge with her, weren't you?" Before the harvesters attacked. "We had already started the process." Mason wouldn't meet her eyes, focusing instead on the medical readouts. "That's how I survived the quantum radiation when their fleet exploded. Part of her, a small part, merged with me before she died. Enough to change me, but not enough to save her." That explained so much: his advanced knowledge, his ability to work their technology, even his enhanced combat skills. He carried a fragment of Lyra's quantum essence within him. "That's why my ship brought me here," Zarya realized. "It didn't choose Earth randomly. It detected your quantum signature, a human already partially adapted to our biology." A proximity alarm interrupted their conversation. Mason checked the security feeds, his expression grim. "They're sweeping the tunnel system. We've got maybe 20 minutes before they find us." He turned to Zarya, decision clear in his eyes. "How does this merger work?" "The real version, not the partial one I experienced before." "Mason, wait." Zarya caught his hand. "You need to understand what you're offering. This isn't like before. It's not a partial transfer of knowledge or abilities. Our consciousness, our memories, our very beings will combine completely. You'll still be you, but you'll also be me. Everything I am, everything I know, everything I feel, it will become part of you, and everything you are will become part of me, including my embarrassing high school memories and questionable taste in music. All of it," she confirmed, managing a weak smile at his attempt at humor. "Our separate identities will merge into something new, something that's never existed before, and it can't be undone." Mason was quiet for a moment, studying their joined hands. "Will it hurt?" "Yes," Zarya admitted. "The physical pain will be intense as our cellular structures combine. The psychological adjustment, that will be harder. Some pairs don't survive the mental merger. Their personalities fragment, unable to reconcile the two separate beings becoming one. But you think we might succeed. Because of my previous partial merger, it gives us a better chance. Your mind has already adapted to sharing space with another consciousness. But Mason," she squeezed his hand, "you need to be certain. Once we begin, there's no going back. You'll never be just human again." The security system beeped another warning. The harvesters were getting closer. Mason's expression hardened with resolve. "I stopped being just human the day Lyra died. At least this time, I might be able to save someone." He began initiating the chamber's merger protocols. "Tell me what to do." Zarya guided him through the process, showing him how to configure the quantum field to facilitate their biological combination. As he worked, she studied him, memorizing his features, the last time she would see him as a separate being. "There's something else you should know," she said as he finished the preparations. "The genetic database I carry, it's not just a collection of DNA sequences. It's the living essence of my people's evolution. Every significant mutation, every adaptation, every step that made us what we are. Once we merge, you'll carry that legacy too. You'll become the guardian of an entire civilization's genetic heritage." "No pressure," Mason muttered, but his slight smile took the edge off the words. He stepped into the chamber beside her, their bodies already beginning to glow with quantum energy. "Any last words before we become us?" Zarya reached up to touch his face. "Thank you," she whispered, "for trusting me, for being willing to give up everything You are to save someone you barely know. Maybe it's not giving up, Mason replied softly. Maybe it's becoming something more. Their first kiss coincided with the activation of the merger field. Energy coursed through them as the quantum resonance began aligning their cellular structures. Zarya felt the first touch of Mason's consciousness against hers. His courage, his compassion, his lingering grief for Lyra, and underneath it all, a deep loneliness that matched her own. The pain hit then, exactly as she'd warned. Their bodies began to shift and change, quantum particles realigning and combining at the subatomic level. Zarya felt Mason's agony mingling with her own, but he didn't pull away. Instead, his mind reached for hers, offering comfort even as their separate identities began to blur. Through the haze of transformation, they barely registered the facility's outer door being breached. The harvesters had found them, but they were moments too late. The merger had passed the point of no return. As their consciousness combined, memories flowed between them. Mason's childhood on Earth, Zarya's training as archive keeper, his years of military service, her escape from her dying world. Joy and pain, triumph and loss, love and grief, all of it merging into a single shared experience. The chamber filled with blinding light as the merger reached its crescendo. The last thing they heard as separate beings was the sound of the harvesters breaching the inner door. The last thing they felt as individuals was each other's complete acceptance. Then separateness ended, and something new was born. When the light faded, a single figure stood in the chamber. They opened eyes that glowed with quantum energy, feeling the power of two unified beings coursing through their transformed body. They flexed fingers that could manipulate quantum fields as easily as physical matter, accessing memories and abilities from both human and alien origins. The harvesters burst into the room, weapons ready, but hesitated at the sight before them. Their target had changed, become something their sensors couldn't quite categorize. The being that was both Mason and Zarya, and yet something more than either, smiled. Two voices spoke as one. You wanted the genetic legacy of my people. Come and take it. The harvesters had come expecting to find a weakened princess and a primitive human. What they found instead was humanity and alien wisdom combined into something unprecedented, a fusion of two species' greatest strengths with none of their individual weaknesses. The real question was, would it be enough? The hunter's shadow, the being that emerged from the merger, moved with impossible grace. Every motion a perfect blend of Mason's combat training and Zarya's quantum manipulation abilities. Their skin shimmered with an iridescent glow, patterns of light flowing beneath the surface like liquid starlight. The first harvester fired its quantum disruptor, the same weapon that had originally destabilized Zarya. The blast passed harmlessly through their merged form, their unified consciousness instinctively phasing their molecular structure to avoid the impact. Fascinating. They spoke, their voice a harmonious blend of both original beings. We can see the quantum structure of your weapons, the frequency modulation, the particle acceleration. They smiled, a gesture somehow both human and alien. The flaws in your design. With a gesture, they reversed the weapon's quantum field. The harvester's crystalline form shattered, its artificial body collapsing into component atoms. The other infiltrators hesitated, an emotion neither Mason nor Zarya had ever seen in their kind before. Fear. The merged being accessed Zarya's memories of harvester psychology, while simultaneously drawing on Mason's tactical experience. They've never encountered anything like us. Mason's thoughts contributed. They don't know how to fight something that understands both their technology and human unpredictability. Then let's show them why that's a problem. Zarya's consciousness replied within their shared mind. They moved through the harvester squad like quantum lightning, their merged form shifting between solid matter and energy states faster than the infiltrators could adjust their weapons. Each touch transmitted a precisely calibrated quantum pulse that disrupted the crystalline matrix holding the harvesters together. But the victory was short-lived. Through their enhanced senses, they detected more harvesters approaching. Dozens of them, led by something far more dangerous than mere infiltrators. Impressive adaptation, a new voice declared as a tall figure entered the chamber. Unlike the infiltrators, this being made no attempt to appear human. Its crystalline body pulsed with dark energy, and its face was a geometric arrangement of sharp angles and deep shadows, but ultimately futile. Recognition flowed through their merged consciousness, Zoria's memories identifying the creature. Nexus, they spoke the name with shared contempt. The one who ordered the hunting of my people. The last archive keeper, Nexus responded, its voice resonating on frequencies that made normal humans uncomfortable. Though I see you found a way to corrupt your pure genetic legacy with primitive human DNA. How disappointing. Mason's memories surged forward. You were there, they realized, 7 years ago during the invasion. You gave the order that killed Lyra. Yes, the foolish princess who thought she could protect this insignificant world. Nexus seemed amused. Her death was regrettable. We had hoped to harvest her genetic information intact. Instead, she forced us to settle for tissue samples from her corpse. Rage flowed through their merged form. Mason's human anger amplified by Zoria's quantum energy. The lights in the facility flickered as their power surged, but Nexus remained unmoved. Your emotional response betrays your new weakness, the Harvester leader observed. You've taken on humanity's greatest flaw, their inability to transcend primitive feelings. You're wrong, they replied, their unified voice steady. What you see as weakness is actually strength. Human emotions, human connections, they're not flaws to be eliminated. They're catalysts for evolution. Nexus raised a crystalline hand, dark energy gathering around it. A theory we can test. After we've harvested your combined genetic material, we'll see if your human elements actually contributed anything of value to the archive. The attack came at multiple quantum frequencies simultaneously, a barrage that would have destroyed either Mason or Zarya individually. But their merged form adapted instantly, their shared consciousness processing the threat through both human intuition and alien knowledge. They didn't try to dodge or block. Instead, they opened themselves fully to the energy, letting it flow through their quantum structure. Mason's military training recognized the principle, like using an opponent's momentum against them. Zoria's scientific knowledge provided the quantum mechanics to make it possible. The absorbed energy transformed within them, changing from destructive force to pure potential. In that moment, they understood something profound about their merger. They weren't just a combination of human and alien abilities. They were a totally new form of evolution, able to adapt and grow in ways neither species could achieve alone. Nexus must have sensed the change. The Harvester leader took a step back, its crystalline form vibrating with what might have been concern. What are you becoming? Something you never could, they answered, their body now glowing with transformed energy. Because you never understood the one truth that both humanity and my people discovered separately. Real evolution isn't about taking from others. It's about growing together. They released the transformed energy in a quantum cascade, each pulse precisely tuned to the resonant frequency of Harvester crystalline structures. Nexus' outer shell began to crack, dark energy leaking from the fissures. This isn't possible, Nexus declared, its voice distorting. Our evolution is perfect. We take only the strongest traits. And that's why it'll never truly evolve. They interrupted. You take what you want, but you don't understand what you're taking. Every genetic sequence I carry, every human memory we share, they're not just data to be harvested. They're experiences, connections, moments of growth and change. They're alive. The quantum cascade reached its peak. Throughout the facility, infiltrators began to disintegrate as their artificial bodies failed. But Nexus fought back, drawing on dark energy reserves to stabilize its form. You think this ends here? The Harvester leader snarled. We are endless. We are evolution itself. Kill this form, and another will rise. Your primitive merger cannot stop. They never learned what their merger couldn't stop. At that moment, the facility's quantum core, which had been steadily overloading during the battle, reached critical mass. Time seemed to slow as their merged consciousness made a decision, drawing on both Mason's split-second tactical thinking and Zoria's quantum physics expertise. They could contain the explosion, but it would cost them nearly all their energy. Or they could direct it, using the quantum overload to eliminate every harvester in the facility, including Nexus. But the blast would destroy any evidence of what happened here. As one being, they chose. The explosion that followed would be classified as an underground gas main rupture. Emergency responders would find a collapsed facility and no bodies. Officially, nothing unusual had happened in this remote area. But somewhere in the darkness after the blast, a single figure emerged. They were wounded but alive, their merged form flickering between quantum states as they expended the last of their energy to escape. They had won this battle, but they knew it wasn't over. Nexus had been right about one thing: the harvesters would never stop hunting them. But that was tomorrow's problem. For now, they needed to rest, to heal, to fully understand what they had become, and to mourn what both Mason and Zoria had sacrificed to become something new. As they made their way through the night, their merged consciousness reflected on the irony. The harvesters had spent centuries trying to force evolution through genetic theft. But true evolution had happened here, born not from taking, but from giving. Two beings choosing to become one, not for power, but for survival. For connection. For love. Two worlds, one body. 3 months after the quantum explosion, a lone figure stood atop a mountain overlooking the lights of a small city. Their skin no longer glowed constantly. They had learned to control the quantum energy that flowed through their merged form. To casual observers, they could almost pass for human, though there was something in their movements, their presence, that suggested something more. Asterisk, the harvesters are regrouping. Asterisk, Zaria's consciousness noted within their shared mind. Asterisk, or spy satellites have detected quantum signatures matching their fleet near the outer solar system. Asterisk. Asterisk, let them come. Asterisk, Mason's thoughts replied. Asterisk, Earth is better prepared this time. And so are we. Asterisk. They smiled, an expression that had become more natural as their merged consciousness settled into its new existence. The early days after their joining had been challenging. 2 lifetimes of memories, 2 sets of instincts, 2 different ways of processing reality, all trying to coexist in one form. There had been moments of confusion, times when they couldn't remember if they were supposed to be Mason or Zaria. But gradually, they had become something else entirely. Not Mason, not Zaria, but a true fusion of both, with all the strengths and complexities that entailed. They had chosen the name Meridian, a point where 2 different worlds meet and merge. Their contemplation was interrupted by a familiar quantum signature. Another figure materialized nearby, her form shifting from pure energy to solid matter. Ambassador, Meridian greeted her. I trust the Council received our message. Ambassador Lyra, or rather, the quantum AI construct that carried her consciousness, nodded. After the battle with Nexus, they had discovered the truth. Lyra hadn't died in the explosion 7 years ago. She had transcended, becoming a bridge between humanity and the advanced civilizations that watched Earth's development. There concerned, Lyra replied, her form flickering slightly. A successful merger between human and archive keeper was unprecedented enough. But what you've become since then, the way you've continued to evolve, it's beyond anything in our records. Meridian turned to face her fully. Are they afraid? They're cautious, Lyra corrected. Your existence proves that humanity is ready for more than just observation. The partial merger I shared with Mason was meant to be a test, a first step toward eventual contact. But you? She gestured to their form. You've demonstrated that humans can do more than just adapt to advanced quantum biology. They can help it evolve. We're proof that evolution works best through cooperation, not conquest. Meridian agreed. The harvesters never understood that. They saw genetic material as something to be taken, used. They never considered what might happen if it was freely given, freely shared. They held up their hand, letting quantum energy dance between their fingers. Every day, we discover new possibilities. Mason's human creativity combined with Zoria's quantum knowledge keeps producing unexpected results. We're not just a combination of two beings. We're a continuous process of growth and change. That's what frightens the council, Lyra said softly. And what gives me hope? The harvesters aren't the only ones who got stuck in their evolution. Many of our oldest civilizations have stopped growing, convinced they'd reached their peak. But you prove there's always room for something new. An alert pulsed through their quantum senses. The harvester fleet was making its move, accelerating toward Earth. But this time, they were ready. Throughout the solar system, hidden quantum satellites activated, technology shared by Meridian with carefully chosen human scientists. On Earth, specialized defense systems powered up, designed to counter harvester weapons. And in orbit, a network of quantum communication relays connected Earth to its new allies. Civilizations convinced by Meridian's example that humanity deserved a chance to join the galactic community. They're coming for us, Meridian observed calmly. For what we represent. The proof that their way of forcing evolution is inferior to natural growth and willing collaboration. Are you ready? Lyra asked, her form already beginning to shift toward combat mode. Meridian's response was to let their merged form fully express itself. Their skin became translucent, quantum energy flowing visibly through their body. Patterns of light danced across their surface, a perfect blend of Zoria's bioluminescent markings and the neural pathways of human biology. We're ready, they replied, their unified voice resonating with power. The question is, are they ready for us? As they prepared for the coming battle, Meridian reflected on the journey that had brought them here. Zoria had crashed on Earth expecting to find a primitive world. Mason had been a lonely ex-soldier carrying fragments of alien knowledge he barely understood. Apart, they had been vulnerable, incomplete. Together, they had become something unprecedented, proof that the next step in evolution wasn't about taking or controlling, but about choosing to grow together. The harvesters were coming to harvest, to take, to force their vision of perfection on an unwilling universe. They would find instead a new kind of evolution waiting for them, one born of trust, choice, and the remarkable things that happen when two worlds decide to become one. Meridian rose into the night sky, their form shifting between matter and energy. Behind them, Earth's new quantum defenses hummed to life. Above them, their allies moved into position. Within them, two consciousness moved in perfect harmony, no longer separate beings, but something gloriously, impossibly new. The next chapter in both human and alien evolution was about to begin. And this time, they would write it together. The end.